has a challenge, and the purpose of the challenges is not to fail us. The purpose of the challenge is that we should exceed, that we should excel, that we should grow. We should use each moment, right? The way that we grow is when we exercise our free will and we choose good in any given situation. And therefore, he said that some people are poor, some people are wealthy, some people are healthy, some people are unwell, etc. And each one of those it brings its own particular challenge. And the last thing that we said, the last sentence, is V'hu yidbarach shemo yodea mitat kol hadvarim hamaasim v'hamachshavot v'da'an otam la'mitam. That only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows all the reasons behind why each person has to go through what they go through. You know, why was this person born in Yerushalayim and grew up in a Torah system, right? And why this person was born in Uzbekistan and to a non-Jewish family and has to go through the process of conversion, discovering Judaism and all that, right? Why does one person, all the different events, the secrets of why each soul has to go through what they go through, it's perfectly orchestrated, right? I think I told you guys, I don't remember if I told you this, if I did, stop me in the middle, but once I was going through a very hard time and I went to one of my rabbis. Tell you this story? No? It's a beautiful story. If you didn't hear it, if you already heard it, you should hear it again. It's worth it. And I went to one of my rabbis, and I was going through something very difficult with one of my children, and I was crying. And two beautiful things happened. One is my rabbi cried with me. He said he cried, and then he grabbed a hold of me and he told me something very strong. He said, Micha, osa lachlok al hamokim. He said, you're not allowed to argue with Hashem. What does that mean? And then of course you can have your disagreements and your difficulties with Hashem. He said, I know that you're a person with emunah. He said, you can't believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs every single thing in this world, all the details, down to, when an ant is crawling in this direction, not in this direction. And when the leaf falls down off the tree, it falls here, not there. You can't believe that, but then in the same breath, believe that he forgot about you. And you just kind of fell off the map. He's not paying attention to you. No. If you're going through this, that means that there's a reason why you're going through this. If you're experiencing this, there's a reason why. So now, I don't know why. Nobody can tell, we would love to be able to go to the rabbi and ask him, why is this happening to me? Right? That's our dream. Somebody could please explain to me, why did this happen, When I was in 6th grade and I was sure that my destiny was going to be a professional basketball player. I was going to be the biggest star in the NBA and I was going to be an MVP. And then everybody hit puberty and I just stopped growing after quite a short while. Everybody kept on getting taller. The odds weren't so big. And why did you make me not 6'4"? Right? All the secrets of our life. Why? Because down to the finest detail. Why is the color of your eyes like this? Right? The color of your hair. Why were your parents like this? All these things. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows why. But it's perfectly custom designed for you to be able to achieve your fullest potential. And even though sometimes we get caught up in looking at other people's journeys and their paths, and we think, man, if only I had that, then I would really be able to be successful. Then I'd really be able to achieve my goal, So, but it's not true. The truth is that because Baruch Hu knows exactly what's perfect for each one of us, and therefore, but we choose. Every single moment we have that free choice. We have that. We're able to exercise our free will, and that's how we perfect ourselves. That's how we complete what we're supposed to do in this world. So now we're going to go into some more details of how it all works. So we're going to start on Hey, and it says the Ulam. And again, we're in Derech HaShem, section 2, chapter 3, paragraph 5. Hey. Ve'ulam milashon shazeh yetzeh od an av echad b'inyan ha'yisurim. Now there's something else. There's another general concept that comes out of here, and that's the concept of suffering, which is, wow, a major subject and a major point of difficulty, right? It's easy to believe in God, to believe in Torah and everything when everything's going well, but when I have suffering in my life, right, our ability to contextualize and understand human suffering is one of the things that occupies the human philosophical brain more than almost anything, right? what's the purpose of suffering? So now the Ramchal is going to tell us very simply, but not just in one sentence. It's going to take a while. Here we go. Ki od shel sheyeh adam tzaddik. There's a possibility in this lifetime that a person can be a tzaddik. Uviyado chataim. But he's a tzaddik in general, but he has some sins. He has some things that he's done. Meaning he doesn't have a totally clean slate, right? Or benoni, or he's like a benoni. Benoni, you gotta know benoni is not in Tanya terms. A benoni is just someone who's
a middleman.
The middleman, yeah, he's got some mitzvahs, he's got some sins, he's got, equally balanced. But now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like we said before, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to let us. He wants us, when we go through the whole process of death, rebirth, right, into the time of Tchiyas HaMeisim and Olam Haba, at that point, we have to have gone through whatever we have to go through to be perfected, to be complete, to be totally whole and without any blemish. So we have to be able to there has to be a way for us to cleanse all the negative things that we've done, right? So sometimes, like we said, it's if a person did do it in his lifetime, so then there's Gilgul, there's reincarnation. There's a process called Gehenna, right? Where a person goes through that cleansing process. But then there's a much better one called Tshuva, which we do in our lifetime, and then we clean up our file, so to speak, right? So then Hashem wants to arouse this person to do tshuva. He wants to awaken him to that fact, because he's not thinking about it, or he's not aware of it. He's not aware of the things that he has to do tshuva of, right? So then what does Hashem do? He sends him a little dose of suffering, or a big dose of suffering. And the suffering is only for that purpose. In order for him to kind of wake up and say, wait, my life is not going to be forever, right? This suffering is pretty harsh. What is Hashem trying to tell me? There's a message here, and He's trying to wake me up to do tshuva. There's suffering that we mentioned above, which is suffering that atones for us. The purpose of the suffering is to atone for things that we've done, but this kind of suffering is really just to wake us up. The other kinds, the kinds that atone for us, they cleanse us in this world in order that we can be clean to go into the next world. But these are just awakening forms of suffering. To awaken our hearts to do tshuva. And this sentence is so important. This is, if people ever ask you, what is the Jewish view on suffering? What's the Torah view of suffering? What's the philosophy? Here it is in one sentence. Listen to this closely. The only kind of, the whole concept of onesh, punishment or suffering in this world, the whole concept is only in a place where there's a lack of tshuva, right? Meaning there's no inherent value in suffering. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have a reason why suffering should be in this world. The suffering only serves a purpose, which is to help us come to tshuva, to atone for us. It's a helpful thing. It's a scrubbing, cleansing thing, suffering, right? And it's not just because that's part of life, because Hashem built it into life. It's not built in. It's only built in a place where we're not perfecting ourselves and doing tshuva.
So it's there because of something else.
Right. But something, it's there for a constructive purpose. If a kid, if someone breaks the law and he goes to sit in jail, like we talked about a couple times, like it doesn't necessarily help anything. Sometimes we need to get people off the streets. I'm not arguing with jail, but it doesn't necessarily atone for the person, or it doesn't awaken them to do tshuva, right? So it's a kind of suffering that's like, you did this, and now you have to suffer. Because Baruch Hu says, you did this, and I want you to be clean, so that you'll be able to have this ultimate good, which is the whole purpose of why I created this world. So therefore, I'm giving you suffering because you're not paying attention, and I want to wake you up so you make sure that you don't miss the boat. Or I want to atone for you. I want to cleanse you, right? Because you've done a certain level of tshuva. Now this is going to help cleanse you totally, so that you don't have to go through other processes of cleansing to be able to get to the Olam Haba and to be there with Shlemut. Does that make sense?
But this cleansing is a relation based on our potential, that everyone has different potential,
Great.
or
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He's going to get into that. But it depends on your past. It depends on a lot of factors. It depends on what you've done. It depends on your past. It depends on your past incarnations, and it depends on your potential for where Hashem wants you to reach.
okay, why I had to suffer now for past incarnations? It's not my fault.
Right. Right. It's not your fault, but it's in your interest. Meaning, like if you go to the mechanic and he says, look, your carburetor is about to go, your brakes, I wouldn't drive this car on these brakes. It's going to cost another 3,000 shekels. This, it gives you the bill, and you look at the number, you're like, oh my gosh. And you ask him, do I have to do all this work? And there's some in Israel. I've been in a mechanic. He said, you don't have to, but you have to sign here that I told you need to do it, and you, like I'm not gonna take the money out of your account without you deciding to do it. But like, I would not drive your car, right? So it's in your best interest to get your brakes fixed because everything's driving fine until the brakes go out, right? So you pay the money now, right? Even what if you bought the car secondhand? It's like a reincarnation, right? I didn't drive these brakes into such. It's in your best interest to get it fixed so that things are running smoothly, so that you'll be able to go through, right? Meaning, there's no way out because let's play it. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us, and He wants to give us the good, right? There's no way out of the cleansing process. You can decide when you do it, how you do it, right? You could put it off, right? The best is like do complete tshuva in this world. Person passes away after 120 years. He fixed everything, totally clean. Doesn't have to go through any process of Gehenna, of Gilgul, or any of that. Just straight into the world of the neshamot. His goof even remains intact, right? Doesn't have to go through the process of decomposition, right? And then he's totally ready. Somebody that didn't do tshuva to that degree, so he might have to go through Gehenna a little bit. He might have to go through a Gilgul if it's worse. Might have to, right? Might have to have a certain level of suffering in this, more suffering in this. All different kinds of. We're going to see there's different kinds of, there's other kinds of suffering, not just what we're talking about. There's more aspects of it. But in general, the concept is Hashem saying, listen, I love you, my ingala. Let's do this. How do you want to do it? We got to, you're dirty. You got to get cleaned up. You're not intrinsically dirty, but there's a parenting book that I saw once with a cartoon. And there's a mother sitting she's next to the bathtub with her son, and he's totally like covered. He looks like, I don't know, like a marshmallow or something. He's like totally black. All you see is these two little white eyeballs. And she says, say something so that I know that you're my son before I give you a bath. Like kids go, I'm so dirty. Like, this is not going to be easy to scrub this off. When the kid colors on themselves with a erasable marker, that's one thing. When they do with the permanent marker, you got to scrub a little bit longer. It all depends on, but we got to get you clean because Shabbos is coming. I want you to be clean, right? So that's the concept, and that contextualizes for us. That one sentence contextualizes for us all the suffering in our lives and everything that we see in the world, because we struggle. I don't have to tell you guys, we struggle with the concept of suffering. We don't want to suffer. We'll do so much to avoid suffering, right? The whole world of addictions, in one aspect, is the broken ways that we try to avoid suffering, right? I'd rather hurt myself in this way in order to not suffer in the way that I imagine that I would suffer if I would deal with my trauma or whatever it is. Right? There's a lot more in that. That was a lot to throw in one sentence, but we don't want to suffer, right? But if I realize that all the suffering has a purpose, there's a reason why I have to do this. It's not because Hashem forgot me. It's not because I just fell out of the system and, the Israeli government can forget about me. The Social Security can forget my number, and, but Rebbe Shalom doesn't forget me. There's a reason, and everything is absolutely perfectly measured for me in order that I can. Okay, bye.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
does he ever discuss suffering as like the klal, like a really bad thing happening to the Jewish people together, versus like if something happens, it's really about that specific individual?
Yeah. He does. I think today we're actually going to get to it. If not today, next year. But But yeah, also the klal as Am Yisrael as a whole generationally, and also like multi-generationally, and also singular generationally. Like why this generation, the generation of the Holocaust, generation of now that went through, October 7th and all the different, this generation which struggles with affluence in the Jewish world in general. Most of the last 2,000 years have been struggling with poverty, right? All those things, yeah.
So is that also about the individual, whoever like went through what they did? It's because of really just the cloud, or really the individual?
Great question. He doesn't go too deeply into that, but he does address it. That sometimes the individual is influenced, like his situation in this world in his lifetime is influenced because of the klal, or because of his community, or because of his area, right? But also that is totally mushgach. In other words, that is also orchestrated. Like why, like Rav Shimshon Dov Pincus, was a tzaddik who lived. He passed away, I think maybe 15, 20 years ago. He's got a lot of beautiful svarim, actually American. But and he said that when he was young, he used to think, why HaShem? Why did you bring me in this generation? There's so many difficult challenges. It's so different from all the other generations. I'm gonna go be back in the time of the Tosfos, Rashi. Things were a little bit more simple. The Yiddishkeit was more clear. There wasn't. He said he used to be pained by that. He said as the time went on, the more he learned Panemius of Torah, the deeper parts of Torah, he understood that this is the most blessed generation. And instead of that complaining, he said, "Thank HaShem, thank you for making me born this generation." Right? The context, but it's all particular. But we'll see that there is an interplay between those in the generations with each other. Okay, so we are on the sentence. It says Aval ani yetzel lefanav yitbarach shemo u'shelo yechta adam. The ideal, of course, for Hashem is that a person should never sin. Ve'im yechta yeshuv, and if he does sin, no problem. He cleans it up. He does tshuva. Ve'im lo shav kadei shelo yavad. But if he doesn't do tshuva, in order that he shouldn't get, lost or lose out, yitztaref ba'onashim. So then he has to be purified through what he's calling onashim, onish, which is suffering or punishment. But again, I don't like to use the word punishment because we have such modern associations, or this world associations with punishment. The punishment here is the arousal of suffering. Valken yavo tchila yisurim lehera. Therefore, first what he does is he sends some type of suffering on the person in order to wake him up, to bring to his attention. But if he doesn't, in other words, now he's explaining very clearly. The first thing, Hashem says, okay, I'm waiting to do tshuva. Doesn't do tshuva, okay, so he sends him a little bit of suffering. That suffering is just to wake him up, just to arouse his attention to the fact that he should cleanse himself. If he doesn't do that, then he gets a different level of suffering. Doesn't necessarily mean more difficult suffering, but he gets another something of suffering, and that suffering now, it's not coming necessarily to wake him up, it's coming to cleanse him. That suffering, the suffering itself cleanses him, right? When we go through suffering and we continue being good people and we continue trying our best in this world, right, to be good Jews, so that suffering itself does something positive for us. It cleanses us, right? And this is what Elihu said in the Sefer Eov, V'yagel and Hashem opens their ears lemusar, to rebuke, to musar. V'yoma mi yeshuvun me'aven, and he says to them, who's going to return? Who's going to do tshuva, right? So Hashem sends those messages. Question is how do you know what kind of suffering you're going through at any moment? I don't know if there's an answer for that, but the way that we relate to suffering always is, okay, Hashem's telling me a message. That's how a Jew relates to all the suffering in his life. Hashem's saying something to me. What do I need? What can I fix? How can I be a better person? How can I improve my Yiddishkeit? How can I be more closely attached to my tachlis in this world, what we're really supposed to do, right? And on another way we relate to it is the second way. This is a kapara. So like you see, a lot of Israelis and Sfaradim say kaparat avonot, kaparat avonot. You've heard that before? And this should be an atonement for my sins. They stub their toe, their car gets a little banged up, they have to pay a parking ticket, kaparat avonot. This should be an atonement for my sins. All right? So when a person says that, he puts it in that context, so it helps us relate to the suffering in a way that's true, in a way that's realistic, and not just getting upset at the messengers of this world. Right? וצריך שתדע, now we're in Vav. In 6. וצריך שתדע שגבול ניתן למרשיע. עד מתי יניחו שיהיה מרשיע והולך ובחירתו הרע. Now what if a person just totally disregards it? He says, forget about it. I'm not going to wake up, I'm not doing tshuva, and he's just going to choose bad and choose bad and choose bad. So does Hashem let it go on forever? So he says, no, there's a limit to it. How long that Hashem allows him to keep on making bad decisions. Hashem has tremendous patience, but once the person or that group of people like have reached their what he calls once they here they're going to go on one more sentence. This is what our sages called his measure was filled, meaning the measure of, there's different ways you can look at this, but the way I like to look at it is the patience, so to speak, that Hashem has for him to do tshuva is been filled up, and now to continue letting him do what he's doing in the world, he's just causing havoc and not good things in the world. So there's no reason to allow him to continue being in the world, and so he's taken out of the world, right? And this is very unusual and very uncommon, but it happens. This is like the pasuk says in Eov, that when their measure is filled, so yetzela, then they suffer, so to speak, then they're obliterated. But until that time, he has free will. He can do whatever he wants. Nothing stops him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't stop him from doing bad, right? He doesn't stop him. It's not like Iran, Iran, a woman doesn't want to cover her hair, she can put in jail. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm not going to put you in jail. You don't want to cover your hair. It's your choice. That's what it says in the Gemara. A person who wants to defile himself, he wants to become impure, but from heaven they open the door for him. So no one's stopping you. It's your choice. The whole foundation of what you're doing in this world is your free will. So I'm not going to take that away from you, right? Hashem doesn't need us to be robot Jews. He wants us to be willing Jews, right? If you have a forced marriage, how much love do you think could come out of a forced marriage? Not so much. But when one of the beautiful things about a marriage is when two people say, I choose you. I want you. Yeah. I don't have to. Nobody's forcing me to do it. I could choose somebody else, but I'm choosing you. There's no greater compliment. There's no greater heartwarming connection than that, right? So Hashem says, I'm opening the door. It's up to you. You can go which direction you want to go. So at that point, once he keeps on going, keeps on doing bad. So at a certain point, Hashem says, "Zo, now I got to take you out of the world because you're not going anywhere." And you guys remember the story when David the Melech was running away from his son, who was trying to usurp the crown of Shalom, and he was running, and then it says that him and his men are going, and they were walking along the valley ridge, and across the valley on the other mountain ridge was Shimi ben Gera. You guys remember the story, right? And he's cursing David the Melech, Klalani Metzah, the terrible curses, just walking and following. And David's men say, "Let Melech, we can't allow this. First of all, al pi halacha, he was worthy of death penalty at that moment. You're not allowed to curse the king. Let us take. Why should we suffer? It's enough that we have to run away, right? From oh. It's enough that the degradation that we're experiencing having to run away. And David Melech said, no. Leave him. Why? You guys remember what David said? There's so much to learn in this one story. He said Hashem is telling him to curse. It's not him. Right? Meaning, when it comes to my relationship with what the suffering that I'm going through, I'm not going to punish the messenger. It's Rebbeinu Shalom wants me to hear this right now. Right? But we have an obligation to fulfill the halacha. This person is worthy of death penalty, right? The Midrash says that David the Melech saw that Shimi ben Gera was still supposed to have more offspring, and those offspring were going to save the Jewish people. Do you guys remember who the offspring were? Shimi, it was Mordechai. Mordechai, the Purim story came from Shimi. Right, and he saw that he was supposed to come from Shimi, and therefore he said, "We're not killing him yet." Right? Why did Hashem allow him to live? He did such a terrible thing. Right? There's all kinds of secrets. Right? But once a person has reached that limit, which happened later in Shimi's life, that David the Melech told Shlomo that you have to make sure that he has to get his due reward. Right? But even that was from a place of compassion, by the way. It wasn't from like we have to get revenge on this guy. He said that he should be able to have atonement because he did such a terrible thing. He needed to die a death that would atone for his life, for what he did in his life, right? Anyway, the point is that once the person has reached that limit, so Hashem says, okay, now you've lost all your chances. But it's very, very rare again for that to happen, like we said before. Okay, Zion, you guys okay? Everybody's good?
Yes.
We need to do like a 20-second break, jumping jacks or something like that, run around the building. Okay. עוד צריך לדעת שהנה ההשגחה העליונה בכל פרט מפרטים משגחת על כל הנקשר בו מן הקודמים ומן המאוחרים. Also the hashgacha is Hashem's hashgacha, Hashem's divine intervention and orchestration of our life also includes everything that's connected to us from before us, the mucharim, like we were just saying. Who's gonna come from us, right? Who's gonna come from us, and where do we come from? Who are our ancestors? Who's our progeny, right? You guys know the Gemara talks about how the offspring of Nebuchadnezzar, of Sancheriv, who destroyed the tribes of Israel. The kingdom of Israel, the 10 tribes, and sent them into exile. His great-grandchildren were learning Torah in Bnei Brak, it says in the Gemara, and all different kinds of things. You never know who's going to come from who, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu does know, right? So part of our hashgacha includes all these things.
I heard, in fact, that Nebuchadnezzar he was a descendant from somebody from Jewish people, I think.
Yeah. Maybe it was Nebuchadnezzar. I thought it was Sancheriv, but maybe I'm getting confused. Yeah.
How come such a jerk came out?
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah. One never knows. Mamash never knows. Rebbeinu Shalom, though, when Hashem is orchestrating your hashgacha, He knows already 4 generations, 10 generations what's going to happen, and it's all connected. Right, Hashem is it's just unbelievable when you try to think about that level of orchestration and understanding, right? So everybody's really excited about AI, but when we talk just a little bit about hashgacha, lahavdil, so the ultimate exalted intelligence, right, is it's just mind-boggling, when you think about different friends you've had over the years and how you met and how you connected and. Right, spouses, how they meet, it's just unbelievable. And then especially when you take in multi-generational, it's just unbelievable. I'll give you just one example of that, but just by the way, this is actually very, very interesting. That a lot of times people give their children names, they just like the name, and then they discover afterwards that they actually have a relative, and they didn't know that they didn't know about it. They didn't know that was a name. And Hakadosh Baruch Hu gives them the Ruach HaKodesh to give them that name. It happened with us actually. My second son, birthday is today. He's 10 years old today. Hillel. His name is Hillel Simcha, and all of our my wife's family historians, nobody knew that there was a name Hillel or anything. And when my in-laws had passed away and we were cleaning out their house, we found some type of I don't remember what it was, an article or something that was talking about a great grandfather whose name was Hillel. Nobody knew it. Right? We just liked the name. We liked Hillel Hazelkin, the elder. Right? So and it's a very, very common thing. Right? So all these different, that's just the name, Okay, let's keep going by it. הכלל כולו מצד כל מה שמתייחסים כל החלקים and כל חלק לבניינו של הכלל. And all the different details that comprise the whole picture, all of it is divinely orchestrated. וממה יושקף בדינו של איש מהאישים, ומדרגתו ומצבו ומה שקדמו לו. Also, where in any particular person's life, what level they're on, or what their situation, a lot of times connected with what came before them. Hainu avot, in other words, like his forefathers. Uvamashi itachru lo, or like what comes after him, the hainu abanim, his children, his offspring, his progeny. Umashi imo, dainu bnei, or in relation with him and his generation. Sometimes a person can reach a level that's limited by his generation, or a person can reach a level that's much higher than would be his potential just within himself, but because the generation is a very high generation, so he has a greater ability. Like it says about Noach, that the very beginning of Parshas Noach, that if he would have been in the generation of Avram Avinu, he wouldn't have been considered such a tzaddik, right? That's what the Midrash says. Right? But in his generation, he's the only person in the entire Tanakh that it says tzaddik v'tamim. This person was a tzaddik. HaKadosh Baruch Hu testifies about him. He's a tzaddik and he's a tamim. He was a complete whole person. So it's amazing that Chazal could say that, but if he would have been in a different generation, it wouldn't have been, right? Everything is contextual, right? Or there's two stories in the Gemara about when there was a group of sages getting together and learning, and they heard a bas kol. You guys know heard a bas kol, a bat kol? Like a prophetic experience that they all experienced together, like a voice. It's not as clear as a voice. It's a bat kol. It's the daughter of a voice. So it's like this very subtle prophetic experience. And what they heard was, there's one person in this room that's worthy of, one time it said, there's one person in this room that's worthy of having prophecy to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu, but the generation is not worthy of it. And then everybody looked at Hillel. And then another story is that there's a person in this room that's worthy of having the sun stand still for him like it did for Yeshua, but the generation is not worthy. And everybody looked at Shmuel HaKatan. One of the sages' name was called the small Shmuel, right? Shmuel the humble. And so, but the point is that Bat Kol is saying, this person within himself is really on such a high level, but he's limited because of his generation, right? So that's what he's saying here also. O b'nei ha'ir, or in his relation to the people of your city, O b'nei ha'chevra, or in his society, in his community, v'achar kol ha'ashkafot ha'ele, yigazer alav ha'chelek ba'avodah v'nisayon shezachanu l'mala. And after all these considerations, then it'll be decreed what's this person's challenge, where's the place, where's their avodah, where are they supposed to be working? And then he's given his mission to serve Hashem from that place, right? I was once in the house of Rav Mechel Tursky, Shlita, a Rabbi in America. I think he's almost 90, but one of the elder Hasidic rabbis, the Hornsteipler Rebbe. And I was in his living room, and I noticed on his wall he had this family tree. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it took up the entire wall in small print, and it just all these just like basically he's related to all the biggest Hasidic rabbis, and many going back all the way to Rishonim and many great So he noticed me looking at it, and he said, "I don't look at that wall." And I said, "What do you mean, Rabbi?" I said, "I could spend my whole week being here in Milwaukee looking at this." He said, "Some people need to learn Musar Svarim to help them inspire them to be better." He said, "For me, all I have to do is just glance at that wall, and that's my Musar. That's my Musar Sefer." What did he mean? He meant that even though I'm a Rebbe, he would never say it like this, but I'll say it. Even though I'm a Rebbe and I've reached great levels in my life, when I look back, who my grandfather was, who my great-great-grandfather was, who my father was, right? Where they reached, like that's enough of an inspiration or motivation for me to keep on working. I don't need a kick, to wake me up, because just thinking about that, right? But all that is considered in our hashgacha and where we're placed. Now he says in parentheses, "V'ulam incha lo'a ro'eh shezeu rak binyan adin shel ha'olam hazeh." This is all specifically talking about where a person is placed in his lifetime. What's the work before you while you're here in this 120 years? And that's why I said specifically that this is about his service. This is all decreed about what your job is and what your role and what you're supposed to actually do in this lifetime. What situation you find yourself in this world? Because according to your situation, that's going to be your work, right? If you grew up in some city in Moldova and there's 2 Jews in the city, right? And so there's not going to be an expectation of you that you're learning Torah like Rav Elyashiv, 24 hours a day. That's not the expectation of you, right? But there's a reason why you were placed in that city, in that situation, right? But the expectations are different for you, and your job is different, Like Lubavitcher Rebbe Al Mishal was he took a totally different path for our generation than his predecessors did, right? Because he realized that this generation needs something else. We were placed in this generation of Holocaust, post-Holocaust. Judaism needs something. We need something right now, right? And one of the main things that people talk about with Lubavitcher Rebbe was he was unbelievably optimistic, and which is really, really special if you think about it, because he lost almost his entire family in the Holocaust and in the communism, and almost all of Chabad Hasidus was either stuck behind the Iron Curtain or obliterated, really, right?
There is a saying.
You guys know that? So just say this is unbelievable. The Rebbe Rayatz, the previous Rebbe of Chabad, when it came to America, they couldn't get a minyan. So one of the Chassidim would stand outside trying to get a tent, Asiri Kodesh, trying to get the 10th man to come to complete the minyan. Right? Now you look at Chabad, there's thousands and thousands, never-ending Chabad houses and Chabad Chassidim, right? It wasn't like that. It was a time where there was so much brokenness and pessimism in the door, like in the generation, like how are we ever going to be able to pick ourselves up and be revitalized from this Holocaust? Lubavitcher Rebbe said, right now, the main thing is optimism and doing, not just staying in my corner and meditating and being a tzaddik by myself, going out and doing, shlichus, sending people out to do, help, right? Unbelievable thing. That's according to the generation. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, in fact, according to what you said about the previous Rebbe, they told him, this is America, shouted in Yiddish, America is not better than from Russia.
Right.
America is not better than Russia.
Right. Right.
But so besides that, there's a story of I heard about Rav Zusha, and they saw him as worried, like what's happening to you? Because I'm afraid that when I go up there, they don't ask me why I'm not
Beautiful.
Why I'm not Zusha.
Right. Exactly.
Everybody has to do his job.
That's exactly. Listen to what he's going to say right now. So all these considerations that we've spoken about in this paragraph are about what's your position and what's your standing in this lifetime, and that gives you exactly your role and your job. So a person shouldn't think like, if I would be in this place or in that place or in this situation, then I could really do something big in my lifetime. No. Wherever you are, at every minute you could do something big. Because this is exactly what you're supposed to do. Because Baruch Hu he orchestrated this in order that you'll be exactly in this place to do exactly what you could do. But listen what he says. In the future, in the world to come, a person is only judged not according to his generation, not according to anything else, just according to himself. Right? Why was it Zusha Zusha? And this is what the Navi says. Ben lo yisa ba'avon av. That a son will not have to take up the sin of his father. Meaning, if I was born to a father, Khalila, that was a big sinner, and now that's the kind of house I grew up in, so I'm not going to be, my job in my lifetime is again, it's not like Rav Yoshiv, it's not like the Bab Shmuel, I have to find a way to bring myself to the good and out of this type of, right? But in the future, my judgment in the next world is not based on, this is where you were for 16, 17 years of your life in this house doing these things. No, it's you according to yourself. What was your job? What was your role? Did you do it? Did you choose good? That's it, right? It's a big thing. I just have to stress this just one last time before we keep on reading. So many times, I don't know if you guys struggle with this, but so many people that I know struggle with, why does this have to be my lot? Why does this have to be my challenge? And why is my spouse like this? Why are my children like this? Why are my parents like this? And I hear a lot of times people say a lot, like my parents were great, they tried their best, they weren't the parents that I needed, right? Or that I wanted, right? Of course, we all want perfection from ourselves and from our parents, from our children, from everybody, right? But it might not have been what you wanted, but it's exactly what you needed. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu put it like that. He made it like that. And and the work that you did to make yourself healthy and good and to choose good, that was exactly you couldn't have done it in any other situation. Right? There's so much chizik in this emunah. וזה, הנה, אם יזכה אדם שתיפסק לו גדולה ואושר, הנה בניו יוולדו עשירים. Right? So, but we see back, in this world, if a person if it's decreed on him that he's going to be wealthy, why? Because that's going to help him achieve his own completion in this world, the challenge of wealth, not necessarily the blessings of wealth, right? But so his children are also, so they're going to be born in a wealthy home, right?
Why is that? Because they say panos is from HaShem.
Panos is from Hashem, right? And Hashem decided that this person is going to have a chef of panasa.
It's part of your goal, journey.
Right.
Obligation, maybe.
Right. But what you should say, the children shouldn't start off wealthy. Everybody should start off equal, like communism, But no, it's also hashgacha that Hashem decided these children are going to be part of their mission and their challenge and their hashgacha is that they're brought up with it in this wealth, right? And if nothing changes in their hashgacha, because that's part of the hashgacha, so they're also going to have wealth and good standing, so to speak, in society. Or the opposite. It comes out that the reason it was really for this particular person that it was this decree that he should have the wealth, and them just by the fact that they're his children, which is hashgacha, but that's the part of the hashgacha, so they also are born into that wealth, right? Or the opposite, right? The truth of the matter is this: she'adam zocheh lebanav b'chamisha dvarim shemanu chachamenu zechron levacha. That in Masechet Eduyot and the Gemara Mishnah actually talks about 5 things that children, that parents bequeath to their children, that children inherit from their parents. What is it? How they look, their strength, physical strength, their wealth, their intelligence, and their longevity. Right? And of course, none of these are like ironclad, and everybody has their own hashgacha, and what we do with it is something else. But you don't have a choice if you have If your parents are wealthy, you don't have a choice to grow up in poverty. You're going to grow up in the house that your parents are, right? And if your parents have, are very tall, so then you're probably also going to be quite tall, right? Etc. וכבר אפשר שיוולד אדם בטובה מצד היות אביו כבר מוחזק בה, ואפשר גם כן שמצד זכות אביו. So a person can have some type of like worldly benefits just because his parents had that. Right? Again, it could be a challenge. It is a challenge, right? Or it could be that because of in the merit of his forefathers, at some point in his life he'll have some type of good thing happen to him. Or the hefech, right? If a person, nobody knows why our souls were chosen to be able to come close to Torah, to come close to relationship with the Baruch Hu, right? If we didn't grow up with it, there's in my case, I'm one of 3 brothers, and all 3 of us became Balei Tshuva, and everywhere that we used to go, in the yeshiva world. So everybody used to say, "Oh, something happened. How did this happen? It's who's of us? It's the merit of. You must have had a great grandfather that that had some type of great zchut, that right. Eventually, everybody's going to come back. Each one of us has great grandfathers. If it's Avram Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu, or anybody else, right? Eventually, that zchut comes to this, right? But sometimes that can change your situation in your lifetime. ומצד אחר, אפשר שתיפסק הצלה, I think it's supposed to be הצלחה, or maybe it's הצלה, או טובה לו, על זרע שעתיד לצאת ממנו. And sometimes a person can be given some type of, wealth or poverty or whatever. Again, those are just the basic examples that we're using. Not because for himself, but because for his children, right? His children need to have that for their hashgacha. וכן מצד מקומו או חברתו. אפשר שתיפסק עליו טובה או רעה מטובות עולם הזה ורעתו. And I think this gets to what you're asking a little bit before it touches it, is in sometimes because of the place that you're living, some type of blessing needs to come to you for the place or for the community, right? That it's going to be good for the community, right? Or רעה מטובות עולם הזה, or some type of difficulty, right, in this world, right? So there's all different kinds. Again, this chapter is just basically listing all the different reasons and possibilities of why things happen, but they're all happening because of hashgacha. I think we'll probably stop here, but I just had a story I was thinking about. I can't remember, but also the concept of who sits in the Oval Office in the White House, right? It's not stam. It's not just because this amount of Americans voted for the it's not just a math thing. It's hashgacha, all these different things, right? All the different details, but more specifically here, talking about the specific details of a person's life. Like a person might now I remember the story. A person might achieve wealth, and he doesn't know what the wealth is for, right? There's a story of was it the Bas Ayin? Maybe I think it was the Bas Ayin. That the Bas Ayin was a great Rabbi. He was a student of the Kedushas. He made Aliyah, lived in Tzfat. Beautiful stories about him, but once a person, there was one of his chassidim was very, very poor, and he had a lot of children, like 9, 10 children, and his wife sent him to the Rebbe to go spend Shabbos with the Rebbe and get a bracha that they should have parnasa. And so he went to the Rebbe, and once he got there, he just got lost in all the excitement of being Shabbos with the Rebbe, and he totally forgot why he was there. He just enjoyed the Shabbos and listened to the Divrei Torah. And the way it used to be is you go for Shabbos, and on Sunday morning you daven Shachris, and then you take leave with the Rebbe, you get a bracha. That's when you get a bracha. So he went, and the Rebbe asked him, "Is there anything you wanted?" He said, "No." Thank you. And he got home. His wife said, "What? You didn't get a bracha from the Rebbe?" He said, "Oh, I'm so gewaldig, I just forgot totally." She said, "Go back. Go back. The next Shabbos, the same thing." Finally, the third time she said, "Don't come home until you get a bracha from the Rebbe." Oh, wait, no. So I'm telling you, I got confused. Different story. He the second time he went, And the Rebbe told him, and the Rebbe said, "You sure there's nothing that you wanted to ask?" And he said, "Oh yeah, my wife wanted a bracha for parnasa." So the Rebbe closed his eyes, and for a long time he opens his eyes and he says, "I give you a bracha that you're going to have a son, and when he's born, make a bris with a huge suda and invite everybody from all the neighboring towns to you for the suda." He said, "Oh man!" All excited. He comes home. He tells his wife the bracha, and she's this is not the bracha that we were looking for. Go back to the Rebbe. Tell the Rebbe, we have enough sons. Now we need parnasa to feed them. So he went back and the Rebbe closed his eyes again, and they said the same thing. You have a son, make a big bris, a huge suda, invite everybody. Make sure that everybody knows about it. Oh man, he goes home, and then finally he comes back in and said, "Rebbe, I'm really embarrassed to say this, but my wife said we have enough children. Now we need parnasa."
Wow.
And he said, "You don't know how it works." He said, I went up in my mind's eye. I went up to and I looked at the shores of each one of your neshamas. None of you are supposed to have parnasa. So I'm trying to fish down. I'm trying to bring you a neshama that's supposed to have parnasa, and the rest of the family can enjoy the parnasa. And each time you're telling me you don't want, you're not taking the bracha. What can I do? Right? So we have no idea. But the klal is from here, for whatever reason, why you have this, that, or the other, we don't know the reason. He's just giving all different kinds of examples of what it could be for. But we do know that each one of those moments, whatever I have, is a test for me, and I have to use it for good, and I have to choose good within whatever situation I have. That's the klal. That's the main point. Okay, gentlemen. God bless.
Good.